the majority of developers don't have that problem because they don't write tests. So,
Yeah,
oh, that's a
true,
jab. Oh, oh,
true.
oh.
Hey, Scott, how's it going?
I'm straight. So with you.
I'm good. I'm good. Just relaxing from the holidays. Yeah.
We live in a modern society. I hope I don't get canceled for just subconsciously just saying I'm straight. Because now it's like,
Ah,
anyways, I'm kind of straight, but then I'm like kind of like stressed mentally, right?
mm,
So my last contract ended uh maybe 9 days ago, whatever the math is for 2 Fridays ago. And immediately I'm like, yo, well, I'm unemployed in between assignments. I'm about to come back. So my next assignment, I'm gonna get more money, right? That's a thought process. It may just mean no, you increase your likelihood of getting your next assignment, and you're probably just gonna make less money, but at least you have a job while other people are still dealing with layoffs, right?
mm.
Because this thing is still going on. So I've been I've been studying. Can't say a metaphor because I'll get canceled for that too. But I've been studying like crazy, right?
Mm.
And yeah, so like I got some cloud certification exam tips. Maybe we can
Okay.
touch on that for maybe the first segment.
Yeah, sure, sure. Let's roll with it.
All right.
Um, yeah. I know you mentioned something about like containers and things like that.
Yeah,
There was
you've been really helpful, and something that I never considered because I was just in the trenches, is you mentioned, hey, Scott, instead of calling me every evening and interrupting what I'm doing with my family, why don't you just like ask ChatGPT and then escalate it to me if you're still not there? And I'm like, oh, I never considered that. Right?
oh,
You didn't say it in those words, but I kind of got the message.
well, I didn't really mean it that way, but one thing, so like I explained to you, I had quite a bit of experience with clouds in general, right? So after having to do PCI DSS certification and, cloud infrastructure for a payment platform on Azure, and having to do something similar with GCP, I thought, oh, going to Amazon AWS is going to be a breeze. No, it wasn't. Um, it's a different cloud with different unique things about it. Many of the concepts still carry across. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I found ChatGPT to be very very helpful, right, in asking precise questions and getting precise answers to my precise questions. I think that was very uh, it seriously cut down on the amount of time I spent trying to figure things out. When I initially joined Amazon. But yeah, it's a very good resource, especially for like from a software architect standpoint, right? Is that you can give it different things. You can even give it like CDK code, infrastructure code, or even ask it to write infrastructure code for you, and it will do it. And that helps you really get an understanding of certain things without having to go through the drudgery. So a good way I can put it is it is very useful for someone who has experience but not knowledge, right? Yeah, someone
Mhm.
like you. So that's why I
Yeah.
recommended it. Yeah.
So I just had a light bulb go off in my head as something to include in my certification tips.
Mm,
It just went off in my head. So, like, I'll start, right? Um, so my current policy for studying is, if a policy is a set of rules, right?
yeah.
Is I go through the Microsoft Learning path, in which it has several dissertations called modules, and you go, and each module represents a certain uh, topic, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
section of the test. So, for example, VMs and containers, or security, or logging, right? These are
Mm-hmm.
examples of the various sections of the test. Messaging as well.
Okay.
And so I'll go through the Microsoft Azure uh, training material on the
Mm-hmm.
website and knock off all the learning paths that have or consist of all the modules, and that takes me like maybe 3 to 4 days to get through, because I think it's approximately 16 learning paths. Okay.
Mm.
So yeah, I've been going hard, right? So then after I knock that off, then the next stage of my training process is to download a certification exam book and consume it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have certification exam books. In this case, I'm doing certified Azure developer. So that's
Okay.
AZ-204.
Mm-hmm.
And my process for that stage of training is to read a chapter, just go through it, and then after I go through that chapter, I read it again, and this time anything that is bold, such as terms or any concepts that just appear relevant for a candidate for an exam question, I
Mm-hmm.
make flashcards, right? So the first phase of the reading of the actual book on the certification is just read through the chapter. The second phase is reread through the chapter and start making flashcards of every term and every concept that is highly likely to be on the test.
Mm.
So then I do that. Okay, it's not over, right? So then I I'm a huge practitioner of integrating, aka streamlining everything that you need in order to live a healthy life, right?
Okay.
So like you put all your marbles in a jar, and everything that you would like to do likely won't fit, right?
Mm.
So
Yep.
a way to circumvent that is to try to hack the system. So I then throw on a weighted vest. My vest is a 35-pound vest, right? It
Mm-hmm.
kind of looks like a suicide vest. It has two rows with 5 slots per row on the front and back. And so it's like 35 pounds or something, whatever the math is. I
Mm-hmm.
throw that on. I bring my deck of flashcards. Make sure you have it in a Ziploc bag if there's chances of rain, right? And I do between a 2 and 4 mile walk on the beach, like going through the sand, going through my flashcards with weight on my shoulders, and that's how I burn maybe 150 to 200 calories. So
Oof.
that's my fitness for approximately an hour to an hour and a half as I'm going through approximately 60 or 70 cards, flashcards. I'll
Mm.
pause or I
So,
keep going.
I have a slightly different process.
Okay.
Um, and I have a slightly different process that I think you could benefit from. I know it
Hmm.
helped me a lot in university. And part of the reason was that I was so lazy. So for me, I needed to come up with the most efficient way. I never used to attend class for starters, right? Like I hardly attended class. So when I did attend class, it was probably maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the exam. So I needed a way to condense a lot of information so that I could enter into an exam and pass. In fact, I was notorious for it. There was even a time I didn't attend the class. I think it was a course, a survey of programming languages. I didn't attend any of the classes, and I just waltzed into the exam hall and scored 77 out of 80. And, and I got a B without any assessment or anything like that. And in fact, to the point where the lecturer was so like shocked that he had to remark because he knew me, you know. story for another day. So he had to remark it to be sure that, you know, he marked it correctly because I did not do any assignment, I didn't attend any class. And my technique is similar to your flashcard, but different. Because what I would do is I would get a sheet of paper, just one sheet of paper, and I would try to imagine that I could be allowed to carry that sheet of paper into the exam room, right? So I needed to encode the entire note onto that sheet of paper, right? So if it means writing in very tiny fonts or something like that, I would have to do it. But the act of doing it, right, did two things for me. Number one is it forced me to digest what I'm learning, because for me to be able to compress the information, I it has to coagulate in my mind. So the process of trying to encode all that information on a sheet of paper meant that I could easily just compress all that info. Then, before going to the exam, look at the piece of paper and it gives me a mental map of all the knowledge I need. So, when I'm in the exam hall and I'm asked a question, then I can remember what section in the sheet of paper addressed that question. And then I can even remember how I wrote, all the knowledge I had to gain from to be able to produce that um, 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 to be able to produce that compressed data,
Mm,
right? So it's similar to flashcards, but the problem with flashcards is that flashcards are kind of flat. So,
yep.
and you need a lot of them to
It
go
doesn't
through.
really, the flashcards alone don't really enforce fundamentals or a foundation about how
Yes,
things are wired up together in order for it to have
yes.
value.
Yes, and doing it this way forces you to figure out first principles, right? Because if you think about it, the first principles are the most condensed form of knowledge for any subject or any field, right?
Yep.
So if you think about, oh, what is programming, for example, what are the first principles of programming, right? You have statements, you have for loop, while loop, those kind of key fundamental concepts. I'm just giving an example here. So what I would suggest you should try, just try it, see how it works, how it plays out, if it helps you, if it doesn't help you. I know it's a system that worked really well for me, so you should
Hmm.
definitely try. Just take a sheet of paper and tell yourself that everything you need to do this certification, right? All the knowledge you need has to somehow fit into that sheet of paper. And then imagine Microsoft saying, you know what, Scott, we're going to give you the ability to carry one sheet and exactly one sheet of paper. So all of a sudden, you find out that only the really important things you really need to remember end up on that sheet of paper, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the next stage. All
Okay.
right. So
Yeah.
the first activity was going to the Microsoft Learning paths on their website and going through like all 16 of their learning paths,
Mm-hmm.
which which is then partitioned into several modules per learning path. And then the second activity was to, oh yeah, in those learning paths, they each module has like a question and it has like a little test, like it may have like 5 questions at the end. So then the other part was reading a chapter and then read the chapter again, and then this time take notes by means of flashcards.
Okay.
And then after that, analogous to what you said, where I don't use a paper, but again, flashcards, they're kind of like arbitrary trivia, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're really like trivia questions, but it doesn't really force the mind to really understand conceptually why it's valuable and how it links up to the other branches that make up this cloud solution.
Yeah.
Have a washable whiteboard with dry erase, right? And so this is
Mm-hmm.
the part where when it comes to security,
Mm-hmm.
I get so like inundated with I don't know how all this stuff works. Like managed
Mm,
identity, and then the types of managed identity, and then access policies, and then conditional access policy and security principle, which can be decomposed into a user principle or a service principle,
mm,
and service or shared access signatures. And I'm like, I get inundated and I get overwhelmed, right? So then it's like, all right, what is managed identity? And if I were to try, if I were a salesman or a solutions architect, how can I convince people with a lot of money to buy an idea from me, to buy something that I want to, that I think is going to serve them well for the lifespan of the system that has yet to be built, which means for the next 15, 20 years, whatever.
mm,
And so this encourages me to draw diagrams, and a diagram is a whole bunch of blocks that are wired to a whole bunch of other blocks, right? And
yeah.
in order, and basically encourage me to explain how a certain concept is broken down and how it relates to the big vision, right, or the overall view of why someone needs it in the first place. And so that's kind of analogous to when you were saying fit it onto a one-sided sheet of paper. But when it comes to like security, like right now, I kind of rely on this, and I'll just keep diagramming, and then I'll narrate, and then I erase it, and then
Mm.
I diagram it again, so that hopefully I can
It
rely on
sinks.
memory. And I might do that 6 times within like, I don't know, half an hour, and then
Mm.
hopefully it sticks more.
So I wanted to even show you an example. That I hopefully that it's helpful. Just give me a sec. Let me know if you see it. Do you see it?
I see.
Yeah. So this is an example of something similar to what I was doing, but this guy, what he does is he takes an entire field like computer science, and then he breaks that field into like the. Let me see. Let me try and.
Oh, I thought you, when you were talking about it, I thought you literally just put a whole bunch of words with bullets. I didn't know so you actually put diagrams on that sheet of paper?
Yes, anything that will help me remember, right, is what I would put there. So, for example, in your own case, I would have maybe a diagram of a sample application architecture. Okay, this is how your load balancer connects to your instances. This is how your instances are all in a VPC, virtual private cloud, or in the case of AWS. And you have this, and this is how these are connected. Because that's the most, diagrams are one of the most they are one of the most condensed way of passing information across. Even the act of drawing it will help you remember, right? So let me look for a large one. Yep, opening new tab. Excellent. So this is what it looks like, right? So what he would do is, why does this thing keep, let's save it to the desktop. Better I use a different program because I don't know what Microsoft is doing. Yeah, excellent. So you can see this is map of computer science. Then you have, computational complexity, MP, PMP. You have this aspect is all theoretical computer science, where we're talking about state machines, automata theory, Turing machine, and or gates, parallel programming, data structures, algorithms, linked lists, things like that. And then you have your computer engineering. Remember, this is computer science, this is computer engineering, where you have your web apps, you have your browser, application, operating system, BIOS, silicon, you have networking, you have compilers, you have performance. It's I will try and put the link in the description of the video. But what he does is he just goes through explaining like all those fields, and then he shows them in the different sections of the image. Now, this is kind of what I'm trying to get at with you, in the sense that it's kind of what I used to do, in the sense that if there are any diagrams in the notes, if there are any bits of definitions, essentially, right, I would just quickly write them, they will be so tiny, and I'll just put everything together, and I'll just have a mental picture of that image, right? And when I enter into the exam hall and I'm asked a question, I can in my head know that, oh, computer engineering was towards the left. What was there? Okay, there was some things about programming languages and stuff like that, and then rebuild all that knowledge out of it. So yeah, the act of just compressing that information alone is going to help you focus on the key bits of knowledge that is important that you need to remember.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
yeah, no worries, no worries. I'll also send you the link to this video as well if I find it. Let me see.
Yeah, so I got like 3 more chapters left. The
Okay.
next phase after I complete the book is to then make flashcards of all the quiz questions at the end of each chapter, if it's not already included in my deck of flashcards.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the areas that I'm weak in, which is security,
Okay.
Event Hub,
Okay.
any of those other cloud services, go ahead and do a lab. Maybe do it 3 times, so hopefully it sticks with the workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And then take some practice exams. So in my case, I purchased, I think it's called Wiz Labs, and so they have like video content. I think they have some like written content for training material, and then on their website you can basically generate practice exams per. It's flexible enough that you could have it per section, and so my goal is to just do the entire practice exam covering everything, and keep doing it just like my WPF certification that I took. Keep doing it until I consistently hit 90% with each
Mm-hmm.
attempt. And then once I consistently hit 90% or above with each practice exam, then I'm just going to march into a training center and take it.
Okay. That sounds good. Wishing you all the best of luck, man, because yeah, I know you've been you've really been putting in a lot of effort and all of that, and yeah, hopefully everything
Yeah.
pans out. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like a midlife crisis, and like a lot of things like aren't really going the way I would like. And so, how do you abstain from like troubling thoughts and try to focus on things that can be productive
Mm.
and put you in a better place regardless of what you're going through right now. So this is kind of therapeutics as well. So
Oh, yeah. That's great to know. That's really great to know. Um, on my end, I've been trying to work on my channel. I know I the past year has been really stressful at work. Mostly because I've been trying to ramp up and really understand, the whole method to the madness and the chaos and all of that. And I think I have a solid grasp of it at this point. So I'm pretty confident in my understanding of, how systems are built, how, systems are managed at that scale, all the interpersonal dynamics of working with within a team that's within a team that's within a team that's within a team. uh, and, and all the craziness that comes with it. So yeah, right now I think I'm on leave, so yeah, been focusing mostly on improving my channel, improving um my gear. I don't know if you noticed, but yeah, everything is stepping up.
yeah, see, I saw that you posted a review of a GPU. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it was a CPU,
Oh, it's a CPU.
7950X3. Yeah, CPU.
Oh,
um yeah, like my recommendation in that video was, pretty much, if you're a software developer who has to run hundreds of unit tests, or you have to build compilers, or if you in other words, if your build times if your build times are anything more than 5 minutes, or anything more than maybe 2 minutes, then get yourself a powerful CPU. It's going to save you a lot of time, and is also going to alter your it's also going to alter your perception on how you do things, right? Because if something takes too long to do, you're going to do less of it, right? And if something that is supposed to take too long is quick, then you don't even need to worry about it. You just try it anyway, right? Um, and that alters your habits on how you build software. So yeah, I would hardly recommend any software developer who makes money from writing code, which is almost all of us. Having better gear is always a smart decision.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the majority of problems don't take two. The majority of developers don't have that problem because they don't write tests.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's a
True.
jab. Oh, oh,
True.
oh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think it was Primogen that said that the developers who don't write unit tests are mostly working on CRUD applications, because it's only when you're building CRUD applications that you don't even see the point of having tests. But if you're building anything remotely complicated, right, you know immediately that you can't do anything without tests are like they are how you see in the dark, right? Because you don't know if what you're writing is good or not, right? Until you write tests, and then you're like, okay, I have a certain amount of confidence that this code change does what it's going to do. And it also helps the people who are going to review your code as well. Because if you just give me any arbitrary piece of code and tell me does it work or does it not work, I don't know, right? I can do my best. I can try to use my eyes to try and figure out, okay, what's the code path? How does this work? But I don't know for sure. And tests, gives the reviewer the confidence to say,
Yeah,
yeah, this looks good, right?
it should be a prerequisite.
Yeah.
There's I gotta slip in something from the past. I know we moved on, but
Yeah, no problem.
remember you said something about Chat GPT, and I was like,
Yeah.
yo, I just had a light bulb go off. In your
Mm-hmm.
turn, your words, epiphany. My words, revelation.
Yep.
The last certification exam training tip
Mm-hmm.
is 12 months from now, buy my app, my mobile app that will basically enable you to verbally ask Chat GPT
Mm-hmm.
to quiz you on a topic, and then Chat GPT will start firing off questions to you conversationally. You respond with answers, and then Chat GPT will explain to you why your answers were wrong. Then you could go back and forth with your digital assistant.
Mm.
So honestly,
Interesting.
I'm not sure if I'm going to have motivation to write that, but that's like next level space age, right? When you can literally, as you're like, I don't know, jogging, doing cardio or whatever, and you're trying to keep your mind off of the pain, to have a conversation when no
Mm-hmm.
one else wants to talk to you, right? And it's productive, right?
But that's the thing. How do you know that ChatGPT doesn't already have that functionality?
Because
Maybe
I
you
haven't
should,
heard anybody advertise or market the audio the audio part of conversation.
oh, okay, you wanted it like some kind of audio. Okay, that makes sense. But let's try and see if
Even
we
when you're
can.
driving, it's like Star Trek, man.
True, true.
I don't know how they would like, and I guess this is what Alexa and all the other stuff tries to do. But
Mm-hmm.
on like, I don't know if you watched Star Trek
Yeah,
from
yeah,
like
yeah.
20, 30 years ago. I don't even know what the key word was before they would ask the question. I don't know if they said
Oh,
enterprise but anyway, yeah,
mm.
it's like, well, you know what I'm saying, so I'm not going to go into
Yeah, yeah,
details
yeah.
about
No,
how it works.
I get what you're saying. What I was even talking about per se was, if we ask ChatGPT today, right? Can you give me a bunch of questions I should answer? Can you give me a bunch of sample questions that I would need to answer to be able to pass XYZ exam. I'm sure ChatGPT will be able to generate that information and put it in a list and send to you right now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So maybe just have an app that
it hasn't been demoed yet.
True. The thing is, ChatGPT is still new, so people are still trying to figure out, you know, places where it can be applied. I bet you that there are still hundreds of other ideas similar to the one you just mentioned, but nobody has gotten to it yet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my other idea is to train ChatGPT on my voice. So I think within Azure, I think you read a whole bunch of paragraphs,
Mm-hmm.
and you verbalize it, and then Azure will basically take notes, and then it will run a program um, to use your voice or attempt your voice. And
Okay.
so, like back in the day, I never really acted on it, but I always thought that I could be like a next level rapper. Again, I never went to the studio. I never like advertised that I can rap. It's just like when I'm in the kitchen or like if I'm driving and like there's like a instrumental going on, like I'll just start freestyling, right?
Mm.
So make a long story short, I'll be like Chat GPT, yo, rap about XYZ and use my voice. And then I would just start dropping mixtapes and selling it. That's my next
Listen,
idea. That's my
listen,
epiphany.
listen. I had that idea as well. Let me tell you right now, the idea came to me too. In fact, I will even take it a step further, right? In my own case, I wouldn't even ask ChatGPT to just write the whole song. Instead, what would happen is I would think up a concept, then I would ask ChatGPT to maybe I would generate a line, then I'll ask ChatGPT to tell me a similar line that rhymes with the previous line,
Hmm.
right? And then see how I can play with. Because if you think about it, if have you ever tried writing any raps or any lyrics before? The hardest part is figuring out what words would fit
Yeah, the
into,
vocabulary.
yeah, like which word would fit with this particular word in this particular way to to get this kind of, so that it rhymes, for example. That would be really, really hard to do. Um, without something like ChatGPT. But yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to a Biggie verse. I forgot what song I was listening to. I was at a club last night, and he used the term exquisite, and like even though that was probably like I don't know 30 years ago when he was like rapping, I'm like, man, for someone that likely didn't graduate high school, I know
Hmm.
exquisite isn't like really a huge complicated word,
Yeah.
but I'm like,
People don't really use
man,
it. Yeah.
he picked that word out of a haystack to express what he needed. I'm like, man, this
True.
dude got a vocabulary. Eminem is like the prime example of someone with
Yeah.
a vast. Lil Wayne too,
Yeah.
with
Lil Wayne,
vast. Like they don't look like Eminem maybe, but like everybody else, they don't look like they have like
yeah.
a million
Intellectual.
word, five hundred
Yeah.
thousand words in their vocabulary until they
Yeah.
start like spitting bars. So
Yeah. There was one freestyle I saw of Lil Wayne that just blew me away, where he said something like, "My money green." I can't remember the lyrics. Anyway, I won't try. But he said something like, "My money green till my money yellow," and it was mad. Like the way he said it, it had like five meanings at the same time, and all those meanings just flooded into my mind at the same time when he said it. Right,
yeah,
which was just insane.
yeah. Too bad ChatGPT is gonna put them all out of business using my voice. So
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is that what ChatGPT does is it brings that level of lyrical ability down to something that a lay person like me could use, right?
yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we did certification exam tips or training tips. We talked
Hmm.
about my $1 billion idea with ChatGPT.
Yeah,
Is there anything else before we part ways?
yeah. Not much. I think we covered quite a bit of stuff, and hopefully, you get best of luck as you start your whole certification exam. Hopefully, you get it, and it's going to be great.
No, you know what sucks about this? In
Well,
addition, the fact that I mean, I was never really into Pokemon, right? But you got to get
okay,
them all, right?
true.
So you do the AZ-204, and this is the Azure certification for a
Hmm.
certified developer. And like a huge part of that section, I think 20 to 25% of that section is security, right?
Mm. Yep.
So I'm like, man, I done put in all these hours. I done like just took in all this information. I I I gotta like kill multiple birds with one stone. I can't just get a certification and in theory be lucky to get a job if we're still running into a recession and massive layoffs.
Hmm.
In a normal economy, that means that maybe I could get my hourly rate up to like 135. Maybe. That might be unlikely, but that's the main motivation, right?
Yeah.
But then the other part is Pokemon. Got to get them all. I it, it, I have to take all this information, all this trivia that I know,
Hmm.
apply it towards the Azure security certification. Why? I already know probably 15% of the information,
Hmm.
right? That's my head start. And so why would I risk losing that information by being comfortable for the next 12 months, 24 months? I feel like as soon as I knock off or collect this trophy with the AZ-204, I got to immediately, or maybe I'll give myself like 2 weeks off. Maybe I'll go on a cruise or go to Cancun at a resort, whatever. But then when I come back up and reload it, I gotta, I gotta start training for the security certification. Knock
Mm.
that off, and then once I get that Pokemon card, I'm like, hell's bells. Do I do networking, which I'm really, really weak at? That's what I was calling you on,
Mm.
or do I have enough of a foundation to get to Ultimate Trophy, the Azure Solutions Architect certification, which is going to take time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
would say,
you got to collect a lot of
yeah,
these Pokemon cards just to get to that level to take the exam.
I would say, so here's what I think. I would say you should focus on the areas that you are the least strong at. And
Security and networking.
yeah, security and network. In fact, networking in particular, because um, there isn't that many certified Azure networking experts. At least that's my experience. I don't know. I could be wrong, right? But it's not as prevalent as like your solutions architect or a lot of the other roles. So yeah, knowledge of Azure networking, I think, is really really vital and crucial, right? Not just so I'm thinking of it from an application standpoint, right? What knowledge and skills are immediately applicable to you, right? That would immediately help you right out of the gate. And I think networking is one of them. It has like real application. Even if you don't use any of these your certifications to do anything in future, right? That knowledge is really going to help you.
Yeah, because
Maybe a
right now
little bit
all I
more than
just see is acronyms.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's sad what I don't know that industry expects me to know. I'm
Mm.
like, Odie, I don't know what a virtual network is. Like, I had to look up TCP. I hear it
Yeah.
all the time, but I never like really dug into like, okay, so what?
Yeah.
So
No, like I said, I think networking in particular, very, very critical, very, very crucial because, and I'll tell you why, right? The remember one of the fallacies I told you about, we discussed it a long time ago, fallacies of distributed computing, right?
hmm
That the network is
there's 8 of them.
homogeneous and the network is highly available and there is zero latency and things like
Zero
that.
transport costs.
Yeah, zero transport costs and all of
Let me
that.
see if I can name them. I'm sorry. I know you're about to express
Yeah,
something. Let
no,
me see if
no,
I can
it's
name them real
fine.
fast. I believe
Okay.
there's 8 of them.
Yep, correct.
There's so the 8 fallacies of distributed computing. One was there's zero transport costs.
Hmm.
The other one was you just said one of them, something about homogeneous, but
Yeah,
I
the
can't remember.
network is homogeneous. Yes.
Homogeneous means that it doesn't change.
Means that it
It's
means
not
that
volatile.
it means that every person on the network has the exact same experience of the network at the same time. So
Okay.
some people may experience a bad connectivity while others experience perfect connectivity, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are two. Damn, there's six more. Zero transfer card homogeneous network. The other
There's
one
only
is
one administrator.
what's that?
There's only one administrator, right?
No, I
Yes.
don't remember. I don't remember verbatim that being it.
Yeah. I don't think that. Yeah. Let me see.
I memorized all of them like a year and a half ago, and now I can't remember more than two of them.
Okay. Scene. Let me share my.
Um.
Let me share my
Oh,
screen.
one another one is security.
Yes. Correct. The
Like
network is secure.
the yeah, the network is secure. Thank you. Uh
Don't worry. Never mind. This is it here.
okay.
Number one, the network is reliable. No, it isn't. Latency is zero.
Latency.
Bandwidth is infinite.
Topology doesn't change. Yeah,
The
that's the part where
topology
I was
doesn't
confusing
change.
with
Yeah.
homogeneous.
The network is
And
homogeneous.
you were right.
Transport
There is
cost
one
is zero.
administrator.
Yeah, there is one administrator. Transport cost is zero. Yeah. So these fallacies, if you notice, they have a lot to do with like the networking as well. So, and this is the knowledge you would get, I believe you would get in the networking certification. And that is very critical because um, when a software architect comes up with, okay, this is how we're going to build the system, these are all the components, these are how the components will come together, whether or not that distributed system works, right, is how well that translates into the real world, right? And a deep knowledge of networking will help you be able to spot those inefficiencies or spot those issues in your design upfront without even having to deploy it. And even when you do deploy it, right, knowledge of networking can help you in coming up with optimal solutions. I can give you an example. Say, for example, you have surges in your network, you have surges in your application. All of a sudden, there's a lot of traffic, and your application fails in a specific kind of way, right? Now, you need to be able to. There are two things now. One is you need to be able to replay what has happened, to be able to reproduce the effect of that error. And two is you may also need to have some kind of mechanism in place in your pipeline that prevents changes from falling apart whenever there is a huge surge in traffic. So there are many ways of solving the problem. For example, what some companies do is that they would have a separate environment where they could rerun network traffic, but they have to be capturing network traffic somehow, right? These are things that you can do if you understand Azure networking very well. You would know how to set up shadow environments. That's what they call them. Is it shadow environments? Yes, shadow environments are what they call those, right? Um,
Well, here's a dumb question. This is all assuming that the infrastructure is on premise, right? Because the whole point of cloud, or a huge selling point, is scaling out. No, and
the-
availability. The combination of them both, right?
yes, but these fallacies remain true regardless of whether it's cloud or not.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So granted,
So the answer. So they're only true if you don't have either premium tier or what's the other one?
I'm saying
Or
even with
isolated for Azure
I'm saying
applications.
even with premium tier, latency is not zero, bandwidth is still finite.
No, no, no. But I
The
learned
network,
this. That's where you rely on a content delivery network, and a content delivery network is static data, and then the
mhm.
other one is. I just learned what Redis is. I thought Redis was a company. I didn't know that it was
Wow.
like.
Well, yeah,
I learned this reading earlier today. It's a remote dictionary server. All right.
yes,
I did
yes.
not. I thought it was a company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I think it is a company. Let me see.
No, I think it's
I think there is a company. Yeah, Redis Limited is a private. So you're not wrong.
okay.
You're not wrong, right? So there is a company called Redis that their main product is the Redis application. And what Redis does is it allows you to quickly cache information, right? That's what it's primarily used for. You could use it for other things, but what it excels at is caching information quickly. So for example, when you send a request, if you send multiple of the same requests to your service and your service is idempotent, meaning that for the same request you should get the same response, right? At least in any given window of time. Then what Redis does for you is rather than go through the whole process of executing the rest of your application and calling the database and fetching the data and reconstructing everything, you can store that information once in Redis. And Redis, what Redis does behind the scenes is it stores two copies of that information. The first copy is in memory, and the second copy it stores to disk. Okay. So the next time a request comes and hits your service doesn't need to compute it. Your service just needs to tell Redis, this is the input that I got, right? Give me the previous output that I've given you for this particular input. And then Redis will just go right there in memory, just return it. So
Here's
you
a
get
trivia
like
question.
very efficient scaling with it. Yeah.
Here's a trivia question. Do you remember the data types that it supports?
Yes, I know it supports strings, lists, um, numerals. Does it support
No, starts with a S,
ah
ends with a T. There's
struct?
sets.
Oh yeah, sets,
There's another one, starts with a H.
hash.
Yep.
Is it hash or
So
hash map?
so supports string, supports a list of strings, supports a set of strings, supports a hash. A hash, the key would be string, and but what's relevant about a hash is you can actually store complex data, right?
Mm-hmm. Ah,
I learned all this earlier today. Uh,
nice. It's been so long
yeah,
since I.
your
It's
list is really a queue, but they call it a list because the commands you would use is like I think it's push L or push R, right? Depending on the front end or the back end.
yeah.
So
Honestly, I don't even use Redis the way you just described it. Most of the times,
it's because you're
most
not
of
certified.
yeah, true. Most of the time, what I use with Redis is I use some kind of higher level API. So the with a higher level API, you're just giving it an object and getting an object back, right? They handle the low level lists and onset, set, and all of that kind of stuff, right? I remember reading this up, but yeah, I that was so long. To put it in perspective, that was last time I read about like the low level Redis was 2014, either 2014 or 2015. So that's close to 5, 10 years. Yeah.
And we're talking about this because you said that despite cloud computing,
Yeah,
there's still the A fallacies of distributed computing.
correct. Correct. So yeah, and the but the point I was getting at is that there are some solutions that can be solved on the networking level, right? There are some solutions that are uh, used that the understanding of the networking layer can help you provide. Okay, so reverse
All right,
proxies is
5 minute
another.
geek out, and then we could part ways.
Yeah,
Since
sure.
we're talking about networking,
Mm-hmm.
so if you look at my YouTube feed, it's like manosphere, it's it's military, it's gangs, cartels,
Mm.
and it's astronomy. Oh
Yep.
yeah, and it's health and fitness. In
Okay.
regards to astronomy, we're talking about networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what solution they're going to come up with in order to communicate with probes that are like beyond our star system, maybe I don't know, 500 years from now, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or colonies or stations that are on Europa or even on Mars. Um, you think about Voyager 1 and 2. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if any of them broke yet, but my understanding is it's like 2 kilobytes a second, right?
Yep.
So apparently, the further uh, an instrument harboring a signal is,
Mm-hmm.
the lower the bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't really understand the science. I understand the speed of light, but I don't understand the science of why it's lower bandwidth. And I'm not asking you to know,
I
but I'm
know. I
curious.
know.
Okay, why?
I know. Noise. That's why. That's just it. Noise.
You mean distortion of the signal?
Yeah, distortion of the signal means that other noise can be evolved. A simple example is think about just not just noise, there's also an
You
attenuation,
mean
redshift.
you mean the time to filter the actual data from the source with it being coupled with a whole bunch of other stuff that
So
isn't.
so there are two sets of problems with just a good analogy that will help you think about it is think about sound waves, right? If you're sitting right next to me, right, I could be whispering and you will hear what I'm saying,
Okay,
right? Now, if you're sitting far away from me, I would
300
have to
and
shout louder and louder.
I thought it was
So
334 meters per
per second.
second.
Yes, yes, exactly. Speed of sound. So if you're sitting farther and farther away from me, I would have to shout louder and louder for you to hear me. If I was whispering, you wouldn't hear me because of something called attenuation, right? Attenuation is such that as sound waves travel, they dissipate, right? As they lose energy, they dissipate. Same thing with light, same thing with EM waves, electromagnetic waves. Now, if you flip the script,
Well, hold
right?
on. What does that
Yeah.
mean, dissipate? I mean, I know what the term dissipate means, but when it's
Yeah.
applied to light, okay. So a sound wave,
Mm-hmm.
a wave in general,
Yep.
has dimensions to it, or it has a length, right?
Correct.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So a good example
what
is
happens to the length of a sound wave over distance?
the peaks and valleys start to compress. When you throw a stone into a pond, the
Yeah, yeah,
area
yeah, yeah.
around
Oh, that's a really good analogy. Okay.
yeah, the area where the stone landed would have very sharp peaks and valleys. But as it travels, that reduces and then it becomes lower and lower frequency or wavelength. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not really a mathematician, but that's the idea. In with respect to light, what happens is you get what's called red shifting. Red shifting meaning that if the color of the light was blue, then it starts tilting towards red,
The
and the
further it
farther it
is.
travels it now starts getting into infrared before it is so low frequency. Is it low frequency now or low amplitude? I don't really know,
Oh,
but
you mean the Doppler effect? No,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not
the
Doppler.
Doppler effect, exactly, that's it. So what happens, let me explain why I said what I said in the beginning, right? So what happens is because the waves start to reduce, right, it now means that other waves can interfere with it. So if you had an amplifier, so let's say you had a very powerful microphone, then I could still sit here whispering, and even though you are far away you could still hear me because of your amplifier. But the problem with the amplifier is that that amplifier will pick up not just the signal that's coming from you, any other signals in the atmosphere that interferes with that signal will also be picked up as well. So they now need to do something called signal attenuation using Fourier series or something like that, where they can take a complicated signal and break it apart into smaller, into the signals that combine to form that signal.
Well, why don't they just apply what they use for Wi-Fi, an extender?
It's okay, like, so even with, okay, let's take the extender for example, right? Even if you put an extender say on every planet, you still have the speed of light to deal with, right?
Yes,
Okay,
but
that
it's
would work.
still.
That would work. No, now that I think about it, that would
I
work.
mean, if it's nuclear powered for long term, like let's say 20 years or whatever,
Mhm.
then for the next 20 years, it could still amplify the signal, even though it's still the speed of light.
Yeah, so that would work, but you have a new problem. The new problem here is you increase the latency.
Well, okay, this is where I really geek out. The real
Mhm.
problem is these celestial bodies are not stationary. One can say that in theory they could be geostationary, but that would
Mm-hmm.
be really hard to do with each celestial body, right? So
Yeah.
you have different celestial bodies that are rotating around our sun,
Mm-hmm.
in theory at different speeds and not synced with one another. They're not locked in, kind of like our
Correct.
moon is with the Earth,
Yeah.
and so latency is still going to be volatile even at the speed of light because
Yes. Because
you may have one router, for lack of a better term, that's now on the opposite side of the sun than the other
mhm,
router that Voyager is trying to communicate to.
true,
But
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 then
then it could just find the closest router.
exactly, you could just make
Okay.
a mesh network, right? And it
Yeah,
would work,
yeah.
right? Yeah, you could have a mesh network. So just look for
Well,
whoever is the closest to
it's
you.
called a constellation, right?
Yeah, correct. You can have that. Now that I think about it, I think you're right. You can still have your huge bandwidth if you had like repeaters scattered all over the planet. But that
Not
kind
the
of
planet, the solar system.
the solar system, yeah, sure. But that kind of, does it defeat the
It would
point?
have to be a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But if you think about it, having repeaters isn't the same as communicating with the probe directly, because what is happening is, let's say the probe sends information to the repeater and then the probe is destroyed. Yeah, the information will keep going, right? It doesn't mean that you are talking to the probe as at that's the latency I talked about. So when you get information from the probe, how do you know if this information is the latest information or if this information is still information that is still floating through the system?
It's the latest information because it still relies on the speed of light. No,
No, you don't get what I'm saying.
no.
Like the probe sends a signal and then the probe is destroyed, right?
The signal is still alive.
Yeah, the signal is still alive. So the point I'm getting at is that adding more repeaters is introducing latency, and that latency doesn't. So there is the base latency of sending a message directly to the probe and say, "Where are you right now?" And then the probe replying, "I'm at so 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 place." Right.
No,
The
I
moment you
think
add repeaters, right, that latency reduces. That
I,
latency increases rather.
I'm not as versed as you are in this area, but I think what you're alluding to is transmission control protocol, where it's sending acknowledgments back and forth, which is a huge latency, right? Because isn't there like three trips? The
Yeah.
message gets sent, an acknowledgement gets sent, and then acknowledgement of the acknowledgement gets sent, and then the next message gets sent again. Is that what you're referring to?
No, that isn't what I'm referring to. What I was
Okay.
actually referring to is the fact that um, let's say what you really want to find out from your probe is you want your probe to tell you exactly what it's doing at any given point in time, right? Let's say
I want to know its location.
yes, you want to know its location, and it's let's assume that there is no two-way communication. It's just constantly telling you its location. I am here, I am here, I am here, and that's all you're getting. Now, if you're
We can
communicating
assume that,
directly,
but the reality is an antenna still has to be facing Earth.
true,
So
correct.
there's still two-way communication in order to make sure that it alters its antenna, even though it might take uh, a month for it to receive those details or those instructions.
You know what? So what I'm saying, no, no. See, we're saying the same thing, right? I
Okay.
was just pointing out that let's assume that the probe is telling you directly where it is at any given point in time. Then the limiting factor is the speed of light, right?
Hmm.
However, if you introduced a repeater between your probe and Earth, and your probe was telling the repeater, then the repeater turning around to telling you, then you've introduced latency. That's just the point I'm saying. So whenever you get a message on Earth saying I am at so 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 and so place, you are getting whatever the last repeater repeated to you, not necessarily what is up to date. Because moving forward, it might have been in a different position, right? Something else, something new information could have happened that you would not find out, that
For
you will
another
find
month.
out a little later. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, and that's just based on the speed of light, right? So
true.
that's not going to last too long. I'll give it a couple hundred years. They'll use quantum entanglement in order to pass messages back and forth.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting. But
Might
that's
be
the thing. We don't know if quantum entanglement breaks the speed of light. We don't know that.
it's instant.
You have to be precise. What do you mean instant?
Zero time.
Because
I mean, you
the
can
reason,
correct me. Is quantum entanglement a theory or is it a science?
no, it's a science, but
Okay,
we
it's
don't.
instant.
But here's the thing: we don't know, or at least I don't know, if quantum entanglement. So you have to understand something about the speed of light. The speed of light is a misnomer. The speed of light, what is the speed of light is actually the frame rate of the universe. That's a good way to think about it. So
The speed of
meaning that,
light is, I thought it was 3 times 10 to the 9th or something like that. Also
yeah,
recognized as c.
yeah, correct. That is the frame rate of the universe, meaning that everything in the universe that doesn't have mass travels at that speed. That's just it. It also means that the speed of consequence is also traveling at the speed of light.
What in the universe doesn't have mass besides
Light, like
waves?
electromagnetic wave, radiation doesn't have mass. Gravitational waves don't have mass. So they all travel at the speed of light.
Okay.
So again, the speed of light is like the speed of consequence. That's a good example. So it's, when we live in a world of cause and effect, when something happens, you see the effect. Now, if the sun were to disappear
8 minutes.
right now, instantly right now, we wouldn't know until six
8 minutes.
until is it 8 minutes has passed. So the consequence of that event will not get to us until 8 minutes have passed. That includes light, that includes gravitational effects as well. Because if the sun is no longer there, the earth no longer has an orbit and it will just fly out of orbit. But for these 8 seconds in which the speed of light, for the 8 seconds in between when the sun disappeared and us, the earth will still move as though it's still under the same effect of gravity from the
Crap, you're
sun.
right. Was it 8 seconds or 8 minutes? I'm confused. I
I
thought it
think
was
it's
eight
eight. It's
minutes.
8 minutes. Sorry, it's eight
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, speed of light is speed of reality, frame rate of the universe. That's another way to think about it. Now, what I don't know is if two quantum entangled particles would still change instantly, even if the speed, even if if it would change instantly faster than the speed of light. Because even if it did,
The answer is yes. That's the whole.
we don't know that, because here's the thing.
I
Even
read
if
it in a book. I
okay,
believe the author.
okay, hold on. Even if it did, right? The only way to communicate that something has happened is still the speed of light,
Yeah, you're right.
which is why when they measure the speed of light, they tell you that that's the speed of two-way communication of the speed of light. They can't measure the speed of one-way communication because there's no way to communicate the arrival of light back to the source where the light was sent.
You're right.
You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
it could be that yes, light takes however many thousands of seconds to hit the destination, but to get it maybe takes double that time, but to get back is instant. We don't know that, and there's no way we can prove it. I'll send you a video from Veritasium that explains all this, but it's
I
very
think I saw the
interesting
video
stuff.
already.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. I saw a video
Yeah,
recently.
because the video I saw was
Hmm.
how they measured the speed of light and like hundreds of years ago. They were on a mountain and they said, mark this down if when I shine this light or whatever. And
Mhm.
they got pretty accurate for it to be like damn near like hundreds of years ago. But then
Wow.
they did the same test once, humanity evolved. And I think they were basically saying what you're saying, where the two endpoints what they still have in common is the speed of light. So, yeah, I think you said it way better than I could, but
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe one other final thing I wanted to point out was I was watching a video today by Veritasium that just blew me away.
by who?
Um, Veritasium. He was talking about game theory, right? What the best strategy is to win the prisoner's dilemma.
Don't snitch. Stop snitching.
But do you even know do you understand the problem, the prisoner's
Yeah,
dilemma?
yeah. You're gonna quiz me on it. Prisoner's dilemma is, so people rob a bank, and
Mm-hmm.
so the police capture them as suspects and isolate them
Mm-hmm.
for interrogation. The the detectives, aka police, offer them an incentive where if you what's the word I'm looking for? If you tell us that you're
Yeah.
guilty,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll get like a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you don't, and we find out or we can prove that you're guilty, then you'll get like 10 years or 20 years.
Mm.
And what the police don't tell them is, if they don't snitch and if they just keep their head down, stay quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and their partner keeps their head down and stays quiet, then no one does any time. But the police are going to lie, like if we're using the police as an example,
Yep.
because the Supreme Court has already ruled that police are allowed to lie to citizens to investigate and then to enforce law.
Hmm.
So the police can lie and say, "Hey, Tyrone, he already told us, right? We're just
Mm.
giving you opportunity to tell us anything else to reduce your sentence or something to that effect." So anyway, that's game theory is, and I think mathematically, or not mathematically, but the probability, I think, is to snitch and just take your 2 years.
Yes, but that's if you play the game once. If you play that prisoner's dilemma once, then yes, you should snitch.
So if you're a
But
repeat offender,
yeah, but if you had to play that game over and over again with someone, then snitching doesn't help you. In fact, snitching tell because think about what happens after the first game is played, right? Once the other guy realizes that, oh, this guy stabbed me in the back, right? Then moving forward, he's never going to cooperate, right?
I mean, there's ways to mitigate that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think cartels, like when they would have pilots fly their cocaine or whatever back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
they would say, "Hey, give us photos of your family, give us the following information about everything about you,
Mm-hmm.
and if you snitch, then there's a risk of, the people that you love paying for paying for your
Yeah.
snitch, whatever the verb is, you're
Mm-hmm.
snitching."
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. Hold up, how's prisoners dilemma deal with satellites, or what are we talking about now?
No, no, I was saying that I saw the video and it blew my mind that
Oh, game
the
theory.
best strategy is not to snitch, actually. The best strategy is called tit for tat. So as long as you're going to play good, I will play good as well. However, if you stab me, I will stab you back.
Harder.
But if you start playing well again, then I'll forgive you. That's the core strategy that wins.
The example that I read at the university was, that's the strategy that Israel has used. So
Hmm. Yeah, but the forgiving part is also important, right? Because if you are the cynic, right, the eternal cynic, the moment you get stabbed, you're like, never again. And you don't, you start stabbing everybody else from start stabbing everybody else.
yeah, because what's interesting about that, and I promise we'll end it in like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that
Hmm.
is, we maybe learned isn't the best term, but we retain most information through
Quickly.
painful experiences
Yeah.
more than we will
Pleasant
things that
experiences.
benefit us without pain.
Yeah.
So we tend to be conditioned to respond out of fear
Mm.
than to respond intelligently and strategically long term for what's really beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. I think pain is a stronger motivator than pleasure, you know?
Yeah, like when I was a child or even an adolescent, like I always wanted to get back on people that
Mm.
I felt did me wrong, and the only thing that the the major reason that I wouldn't like retaliate is I would think about what my father would do to me
Mm.
and how much it would hurt, right? So that was enough to keep me out of prison, keep me out of jail.
Mm.
So,
Interesting.
anyways. All right, it's been real. We went on a spectrum. We went from certification training tips to chat GPT conversation while running with a weighted vest and having chat GPT quiz you verbally to I'm about to drop a mixtape, having like AI use my voice and generate the lyrics
Mm-hmm.
to routers or extended routers in the solar system with a nuclear amplifier, but
Yep.
you're still constrained to the speed of light to game theory, tit for tat, to stop snitching. Yeah, we went all over the place.
Yeah, true. True. All right,
Uh,
man. It's been real.
yeah, good stuff. Can't wait to have random conversation. I don't know, maybe a month from now because we just did like 2 weekends in a row. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
true. True. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
All right, y'all. Leave a comment. And how do you like this free flowing conversation? You comment on that too. All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.